My name is Nancy Gutierrez, and I'm the host of You Are Not Mentally Ill. Sitting here next to me is the creator and the founder of the Lewis Approach, Chuck Lewis.
Hi, Nancy.
The title of our show stems from the book that Dr. Thomas Szasz wrote in 1961, asserting that mental illness does not exist. To quote Dr. Thomas Szasz, mental illness is a myth. There is no such disease as mental illness. So that's why we say here, you are not mentally ill. Today, the topic of our show is how to stop domestic violence in 3 simple steps. To begin with, let me give you some facts about domestic violence. Domestic violence can be physical or psychological, and it can affect anyone of any age, gender, race, or sexual orientation. It may include behaviors meant to scare, physically harm, or control a partner. And while every relationship is different, domestic violence typically involves an unequal power dynamic in which one partner tries to assert control over the other partner. They do it in a variety of ways. Insults, threats, emotional abuse, and sexual coercion are all ways that they do it. Some perpetrators may use children, pets, or other family members. Victims of domestic violence experience diminished self-worth, anxiety, depression, and general sense of helplessness and hopelessness that can take time and often professional help to overcome. So Chuck, tell us, how many men and women are affected by domestic violence? I understand that the number is staggering.
You know, Nancy, you're right. Each year, over 12 million women and men are victims of intimate partner violence, according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline in May of 2020.
Wow, and that's only what is reported. So, that's really compelling information for all of us. Now, the topic of our show is how to stop domestic violence in 3 simple steps. So, can you tell us, Chuck, can you tell our audience how in 3 simple steps they can stop domestic violence?
Yeah, let me tell you the 3 simple steps, very simple steps. The first one, which is very important to eliminate arguments and conflicts, is to accept yourself the way you are, and at the same time accept the other person the way they are. The way you do that when they accuse you of something, you don't defend and you don't explain. What you may do is, that's the second one. So the first one is accept yourself the way you are. No, the second one is you use an action verb, the Lewis Approach action verbs, to tell the person what to do for you. You use words like do, take, tell, give, go, arrange. And then you would tell them, be nicer to me. And you do that. What that does, it empowers a person to do things for you. It makes them feel better while it's building their self-esteem and your self-esteem at the same time. And then the third one is you say, I would appreciate it. You tap into the person's desire to please by saying, I would appreciate that. That would make me feel better. Again, that makes the perpetrator feel better, it empowers them, and it makes them feel more like going along with you. And it decreases the stress and tension, which is what is very important to do in a relationship to stop violence. And remember one thing, in order for violence to occur, the stress level has to go to a certain pitch for both the victim and the perpetrator. It has to get to a high level for both of them at the same time. Otherwise, without adrenaline, there can be no violence.
Wow, I love all this information. This is so great. So, I understand these 3 simple steps on how to help protect yourself from domestic violence. But Chuck, how come there are so many men and women that stay in relationships filled with domestic violence? I mean, what constitutes people to stay in a relationship where they're being harmed?
Well, you know, here's what generally happens. When the perpetrator meets a person, then what they do is they use a lot of love. I feel so good about you, I love you. They're very good at it to begin with. Initially, they're very good at it. And so that's what they do to start with. And then later on it becomes more abusive. And then the person wants, the abuser wants to get back to that loving relationship that they're hoping for it. And then many times it's because they want the kids to be in a loving relationship and they don't want to have disrupt that. So that's how that works.
Okay. And what about their self-esteem?
Yeah, oh, yeah, the other thing is that they want to get back to, they want to get rid of the violence, not the relationship.
Okay.
Then at the same time, they have low self-esteem. The perpetrator and the abusee, the person, the victim, they have low self-esteem. Otherwise, they would not harm other people and be abuser. And the person that's being abused would not tolerate it. But they do that, and many times they may feel that they caused the abuse in the first place.
Uh-huh.
Now, one more thing is, see, what causes the abuser to be an abuser, they like the power they get and the control of the other person by dominating them. And so that's what they like about that relationship.
Okay. So I see that's why people stay in those abusive relationships. I am so glad we're being able to provide this information on these 3 simple steps for people to be able to get help. So let's review an example of how someone can use the 3 simple steps of the Lewis approach. So let's say a husband says to his wife, "Hey, why are you wearing that sexy dress? Hey, why did you wear that sexy dress when we went to the store today?" What should the person say to the other person to use the Lewis approach?
Yeah, now, but first thing what they have to do is the first thing we mentioned is see yourself as perfect, see the other person as perfect. So you don't feed into the abusiveness. You don't feed into it. And many times when a person says that, it's because they feel insecure. It may not be that the person's wearing a sexy dress or anything, but it's because of their own insecurity that leads this thing. So what a person should do is to say, tell me why you said that. When you notice that, you don't feed into the person's abuse and you feel much better because you're using up the tension that caused by that person saying that.
Okay. Sounds good. That sounds really good. But Chuck, what if the perpetrator is raising his voice in an angry way and yelling at the other person? Does that matter? Are you still able to use the Lewis approach at that point?
Yeah, you could use, as a matter of fact, the Lewis approach comes in very good about that. It has nothing much to do with the raising of the voice. It has to do with the person having a lot of tension inside. So what you want to do is you want to deal with that by saying, be nice to me. Go inside a little bit more. You want to be able to tell the person what to do, and then immediately following that, you say, I'd appreciate that. So that now you keep hitting the part of the body that wants to go along with you and be some more supportive of you in your relationship. If you notice, our approach deals with eliminating the stress, not causing the person to stop yelling, because that's what you need to do is react to the hormones in the body.
Okay, yeah, because you can't change anyone and you can't control anyone.
That's right.
So it wouldn't do any good. So I understand that sometimes abusers involve children in their situations. How does this factor into this Lewis approach situation? How would you recommend people handle that?
Yeah, many times the abuser will threaten the abusee, the victim, by saying that they're going to abduct the children, that they're going to get sole custody of them, that you will never be able to see the children again, and they would say other things like that to threaten and make them feel very uncomfortable. So again, you don't defend yourself, you don't explain, but you have them tell you more about what they're saying. When you do that, you use this up the adrenaline that's in your system and in the person's system, reducing their tendency to be more violent. Again, you have to have violence, stress to be violent. You have to have adrenaline to be violent.
Okay.
So that's what you do.
To add to this, doesn't conflict between the abuser and the victim, won't that negatively affect their children?
You know, it could because of the stress there, but it's more the stress and the raising of the voice is what triggers the hormones in the body, which is most damaging to the child.
Okay.
Raising the voice, they could walk away, and later on they could forget that happened. But you can't walk away from the adrenaline. That's the fight or flight hormone unless you use it up. So we focus on how to reduce the tension in a relationship by having the person explain or be nicer, or you direct them what to do for you to make things better, and for the children too.
Okay, so here we are again. We're talking about hormones. That's the great benefit of eliminating stress in a person's life, because domestic violence can cause a whole lot of stress and a whole lot of adrenaline. Are there any other points you'd like to make that you think might be of interest or benefit to our viewers?
Yes, let's step back for a moment and see what the abuser does. They want to control, they want to be abusive, they raise their voice and stuff. And when you step back and look at it, it's similar to a child having a temper tantrum.
Yes.
The only difference is they're bigger and they look stronger, but they're just like the child having a temper tantrum. And the abuser likes the idea of being an abuser, but the point of it is, if the person asks questions, confronts the abuser at all, they will begin to be like an animal being backed up in a corner. They come out fighting even harder. And so they're fighting more for their life, and the more you question them, the more they want to fight and be aggressive. So we want to avoid that by not asking those questions and causing them to be more violent.
This is some awesome stuff, Chuck. Thank you for adding so much interesting information. Like I said, at our last show, I am a Lewis Approach Advanced class student, and I started out, I read this book. This was one of the best books I could have ever read. It's Getting What You Want and Being Liked for It. And I keep this little magic booklet in my purse that comes along with that. Is there any way another person that's watching this today could realize and be able to start the Lewis Approach, or you could be able to coach them or help them with life stresses?
Absolutely. And I really encourage them to do these things. The first thing is to call our executive director and lead trainer, Charles Lewis, at 818-599-0016. Or they can email him at charles@lewisapproach.com. And for more information, if you want more information, go to www.lewisapproach.com and get more information that way.
Okay, that's great. That was another great topic. So what is the next topic lined up for next week, Chuck? Could you share with us about that?
Well, the next one is really an important part because a lot of people go through these feelings, and that is why people get suicidal thoughts and what words they could use to get rid of those thoughts and feel better. That's our topic for next time.
So that's exciting. We're going to have a show on suicidal thoughts, 3 simple steps. Wow, that sounds very life-saving, and I think all our viewers are going to be interested in watching that next week. Until the next time we meet, remember, you are not mentally ill. All you need to do is learn how to get your needs met by doing the Lewis Approach.